today we're talking about caulking. This is one of the typical units that we build at CDI. They move a lot of air, obviously. We dry air, heat air. Every unit has seams in it. So drying and heating doesn't work when air moves through those seams. So you want to take and seal these up. These seams are representative of all the seams we'll find on a unit. The caulking is sometimes considered to be like a task no one wants to do, or it's not very important. Nothing could really be further from the truth. The caulking is very important for the function of the unit. In the field, if we don't caulk correctly, we have to go out there and repair it. Sometimes that means tearing the unit apart to do. It's very time consuming and expensive. So you want to get it right the first time. So this unit here represents the seam on the wall on the exterior. We have two things to consider when doing seams. One is that the seam has to be sealed. So we want to make sure we caulk properly so it's sealed tight. And number two, it does have to look good so that the customer gets a unit that is professionally built.
Our little Stanley knives with the safety blades, which is what we use for doing most of our cutting. When you get done using one, you always want to make sure you retract the blade, lock it so it's not sticking out, so there's no way anybody could get cut on it accidentally. And one of our other tools that we always use is our caulk guns. They're pretty standard. You load them, you take the caulk gun, put your caulk in, and you're ready to go. Then after you've been using it, you always want to hit your release button here to release the pressure, otherwise it'll keep leaking on you. When your tube is empty, you got to release that, pull back, and out you take your tube out. Then in assembling our parts, we got our clamps that you can adjust from that all the way out to quite a ways. And these are what we use to put all of our parts together with, just to hold it while you can screw it together. Then we have the bar clamp that we use quite often to help pull our parts together if you have to get them a little bit tighter to hold our tolerances, what we're supposed to have. So this one slides here, you got a release here to slide it, and then you got the crank end here then. Okay, when you get ready to do your caulking on wall panels, you want to make a 3/8 bead. So in order to do that, you want to come back at least an inch back from the end of the tip. Cut your tip off, so you got to open it about like that. Now you want to do is make sure you have a heavy enough bead so when you come past your rivets that you are above it. You do that pass first, and then you bring another bead up along the side. Now once you get that done, sure you line up your panels. Making sure you're flush on both ends. Once you do that, run your screws in. Okay, if you properly caulked your wall panels, if you ever pull them apart, you should see your caulk should be completely flattened out when you had the two pieces together, just as we have right here. Okay, when you get ready to cut your tip when you're going to do your final caulking, you want to cut it so you got just a little angle. Okay, then when you're going to do your caulking on the side of on a unit, especially on the exterior, you always want to take your gloves off when you're caulking. When you're caulking, if you happen to if you're putting too much on and you push too hard of a bead, you'll end up leaving a excess caulk. If you do a nice caulk, come down when you do even pressure. And what you're doing there is you're feathering out your caulk seam so it adheres to both pieces of metal. And come back to it then and just real lightly touch it. Okay, when you do your roof liners, you're going to go through and lay a nice bead of caulk in between the panels. Then if you slide them together, you make sure your ends are flushed up. Once you got those flushed up, then you just go ahead and you run a screw in. And once you get your roof liners are all put together, and you get ready to put it on the unit, we pick them up, and then we caulk this seam before it goes onto our unit. Okay, when you go to caulk your roof panels, you lay a nice bead in here, and then you'll come back and you'll lay another second bead right there. Go ahead and lay your bead in, come down. After you get it done, flip it over, hook it on. Making sure your ends are flushed up. Got it flushed. You always want to make sure you use the short screws on these. If you use the long ones will stick past your roof edge. So you always want to make sure you use the short ones. And that's how we put our roof panels together.
Tunnel caulking. We're going to look a little bit at our typical unit that we build that's a dehumidification unit. It's critical on these units that we seal certain seams or the unit will not function. That is the rotor. The rotor you'll find in many different sizes in our different units, but the principle that we're going to talk about here in a second is the same for all of them. This is the tunnel. This is on one portion of the rotor. It is heated, and this is what drives the water out of the rotor. This is a typical rotor that we just looked at. You can see that it revolves at 15 revolutions per hour, so it's turning very slowly. The areas of the rotor, this is 3/4 of a typical rotor, although it can be different. A typical one absorbs water in 75% of the rotor. The other quarter, it desorbs water, so that part is heated. The heat allows the rotor to remove the water, and that's what we're doing. We're dehumidifying the space, so we're taking water out of the air. This is a typical rotor and tunnel assembly. Again, they can be in many different sizes. So the air comes through at approximately 50 degrees, although it can be different per application. And then the reactivation air is heated typically to 284 degrees. What that does is it takes the water and spills it out, and we get hot, wet air behind the rotor. So that box that's red there, this red box is the hottest, wettest area in the entire unit. It's absolutely critical that we keep this sealed. No matter what the unit size, these seams, if they leak, will not allow the unit to function. This next group of seams is on the closure on top of the rotor. They are just as important. All these seams here at the top do connect with the roof. The other end of the reactivation tunnel has the process air coming through into it, and then it gets heated, so this air is not wet yet. So this air, although very critical to the unit, it's not the same as the stuff in the red box. That has to be sealed every single seam. Where you see the arrows, that's where the roof is going to connect to the top of the tunnel and rotor assembly. Those seams are some of the most important on the entire unit. If any of those leak, that means that hot, wet air is going up into the roof lining. That saturates the insulation and it traps water. We literally can have a waterfall inside of this unit, which completely defeats its purpose, and the unit will not function. One of the reasons it's so important here to have the caulking done right the first time, it's important throughout the whole unit, but here, if it does leak at the top of this part of the tunnel, we have to tear the entire roof off, and then we have to take all the closures off that are around this to get at it in the field. Usually it's on a roof of a building at that time. Very difficult work, very expensive for us, very disruptive to the customer. On the back side, the seams on the rotor face are also important, although they're not seeing the same water as on the other side. So in all seams, very important in the tunnel assembly to have them closed. The quality of the caulking is very important, and we have multiple inspections. Our leads do inspections on the unit while it is being built, while it's in progress. They are also part of the inspection during final inspection. We want everybody on the team to be aware of what happens. When we do find something, the lead will share it with everybody on the team. Welcome back. Thank you for going through our video on caulking. A seemingly small task, simple, but very, very important for our unit construction. Without proper caulking, our units don't perform in the field, and that's not what we want to present to our customers, nor what we need in-house. So thank you very much for training with us today. As you start, it's going to be awkward, but pretty soon you'll be an expert at caulking.